The wind whispered cold secrets through the streets of Spokane, rustling the leaves along Riverside Avenue. On a dimly lit corner, Elena Torres leaned against the brick wall outside her apartment, dragging deeply on a cigarette. Her life had been a slow spiral since her parents died 2 years ago, leaving her alone in a city that never quite felt like home. Elena had always craved something more: power, purpose, freedom. Spokane's endless gray skies and sluggish routine left her restless. She found herself wandering online forums, devouring tales of the supernatural. When she stumbled upon stories of a hidden werewolf pack in the mountains east of town, something inside her stirred. The whispers called to her. One chilly October night, Elena packed a bag and followed those whispers into the forest. The trees seemed to close in around her as she stumbled through tangled brush. Deep in the woods near Mount Spokane, she found them. The pack. They circled her like wolves cornering prey, but Elena didn't back down. She begged for the curse. They refused at first, warning her of the hunger, the madness, the endless hunt. But Elena wouldn't leave until they relented. The alpha finally agreed, biting deep into her shoulder. Her blood turned to fire, her bones twisted, her vision swam red. The pain was unbearable, and yet, Elena welcomed it. Her first transformation tore her apart. Skin ripped, muscles bulged, and her face twisted into something monstrous. She woke up half-buried in pine needles, her mouth slick with blood. In her haze, she remembered a deer, no, something larger, gutted and strewn across the forest floor. At first, Elena confined her hunts to the wilderness east of Spokane. The deer and elk were easy targets. But the hunger gnawed at her constantly, whispering for more. Stronger prey. Smarter prey. Soon, she ventured back into the city. Her first kill in Spokane happened in an alley off Monroe Street. A lone man stumbling drunk from a bar never saw her emerge from the shadows. The rush was intoxicating, the thrill of the chase, the heat of blood on her tongue. She barely made it home before sunrise, her body still trembling from the transformation. The news called it a wild animal attack. Elena knew better. And she wanted more. Weeks passed, and her confidence grew. She prowled the darkened streets of Spokane's downtown core, lurking in the shadows near Riverfront Park and the quiet alleys of Brown's Addition. The city's homeless population bore the brunt of her growing appetite. Cops whispered about the beast of Spokane, but they couldn't catch what they couldn't see. By winter, Elena's hunts stretched westward into the endless plains beyond Airway Heights. Farmers whispered of mutilated cattle and blood-streaked barns. The colder months made her bold. She stalked joggers along the Centennial Trail, skulked outside dive bars near Sprague Avenue, and slipped unnoticed between parked cars in downtown Spokane. The city's fear grew, and she thrived on it. But the hunt always carries risk. One night in early spring, Elena stalked a man walking home near Spokane Valley. He wasn't alone. When she lunged from the darkness, 3 others emerged armed and ready. The shotgun blast tore into her side, sending her sprawling. Dazed, bleeding, and barely clinging to her wolf form, Elena fled through the trees, collapsing beneath the shelter of a fallen pine. The wound slowed her, and the scent of her own blood haunted her like a shadow. Desperate, she staggered back into the mountains, avoiding the pack that had turned her. Alone, she grew weak. The hunger gnawed at her mind like a blade scraping bone. But hunger makes monsters reckless. Desperation drove her back into Spokane, limping through alleyways like a cornered beast. She stalked a teenager outside a gas station near North Division. But before she could strike, she caught a scent on the wind: a hunter. They had been waiting for her. Floodlights lit the street like daylight, and figures emerged from the shadows. Armed locals with rifles and pistols spread out to surround her. The hunter who shot her before was there, a tall man with a beard and cold eyes. He raised his weapon, and Elena felt the wolf surge forward. Snarling, she leapt for him. Gunfire cracked through the air. The bullet tore through her ribs, but still she lunged. Her claws raked across the man's chest, and she felt hot blood spill between her fingers. Screams echoed down the street as more shots rang out. Elena staggered backward, chest heaving, her vision swimming red. Barely holding to her monstrous form, she fled into the night. The chase lasted until dawn, until she collapsed among the jagged rocks above the Spokane River. Wounded and delirious, Elena knew she was no longer a clever predator, just a hunted beast. She imagined her face plastered across news broadcasts and whispered in coffee shops. But as the morning sun rose over Spokane, Elena grinned through bloody teeth. They might call her a monster. But she knew the truth, Spokane belonged to her now. And when the next blood moon rose, she would remind them why. The next blood moon came sooner than expected. A burning crimson orb dominated the sky that night, and Elena knew this was her chance to strike fear deeper than before. Her wounds still throbbed, but she ignored the pain. Her blood burned hotter than ever, and the beast within her snarled to be set free. Under the crimson glow, she crept through the South Hill neighborhoods, slinking between fences and casting shadows along dimly lit streets. She picked her target carefully, a wealthy home with an unlatched back door. The family never saw her coming. By the time the morning news reported the slaughter, the whispers had turned to screams. Spokane trembled under the weight of her legend. The beast had returned, and this time, Elena had no intention of hiding.